Hello and welcome to this video tutorial by Computergaga.com. In this tutorial we are going to have an introduction to pivot tables, and we're going to shoot through how to create a pivot table and how to do various useful techniques such as changing its calculation, sorting data, filtering data, grouping them, and ultimately creating a pivot chart. So to begin with, for anybody who has not been initiated to the awesome art of creating pivot tables before, they are a reporting tool. The brilliance of pivot tables really relies halfly on how powerful they are, how ridiculously fast and brilliant they are at their job, but also the other half being their simplicity. And they are really easy to use, and that is definitely half of their brilliance. Because formulas are equally powerful, but it's obviously takes an extra skill level maybe, especially when you get to more advanced formulas. But pivot tables are what they are. They're a feature that's been created for us and really simplified to do a specific job, that is to produce reports and to summarize large lists of data that would otherwise be complex. Okay, so let's look at creating a pivot table on this range of data. I have a list of orders. I have 2,155 orders. So it's a fairly decent size to this list, although it could obviously be a lot larger and it could also be smaller. It doesn't have to be a huge list. And I want to produce some reports on it. So I'll just click anywhere in my range and I'll click on Insert and then Pivot Table. There's a recommended pivot tables button there to help a little bit. This is Excel 2013. That was new to that, but pivot tables certainly aren't new. So don't be put off if you've got a slightly older version and it looks a little different. You might have had a little hunt around for the button if it's moved around a bit. But anything I do in this video you can do as well, regardless of version. So I'll click the pivot table button and we get this simple dialog asking where is your data and where would you like to put the pivot table. And I'm going to keep with the defaults to use this range and to put it on a new worksheet. And click OK. And I'll get a new worksheet with a pivot table on the left, which doesn't look like too much yet. I'll get a filled list on the right hand side with all the columns from my table on the other sheet, and also two tabs along the top, Analyze and Design, with various pivot table commands. So to begin with, to create this pivot table, let's say that if I look back on this other sheet, want to find a total sales value for each country that we are selling these products in. And I know there are 21 countries in that list. Let's have a look at our pivot table performing that, and you're about to be amazed how easy that is. All we need to do is tick the box for the country and then tick the box for total sales value, the two fields or columns that I was interested in. And that is it. There are my 21 countries in alphabetical order, and here is the total sales for each country. So if you've not seen pivot tables before, but you've dabbled with things like SUMIF functions or DSUM, or your filtered lists and selected cells, this is far easier and far quicker. I want to make sure that you don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying pivot tables are better than those things. They are certainly not. They do a different job. There are some similarities and they may produce the same results in their own way. But what we can say is it's a lot quicker and a lot easier than writing formulas. And the other big thing on pivot tables, which is where they get their name, is that they pivot. And it just means that they're very dynamic, they're very versatile. We can change the information very quickly, very easily. And this is what we mean. We can untick the country field and tick product category, and now I've got totals for product category. Or I could remove that and bring in sales rep, and now I've got total sales rep. Very easy to change around. Indeed, if I tick the product category box as well, without unchecking sales rep this time, I get both. So I get a sales rep value and then a breakdown by product category. Now, I should have mentioned before now, it just suddenly popped into my head. I am going to put a link to this file in the description of this video. So you can do the same as what I'm doing here and a lot more. You can get stuck in, you can play around with it, get familiar with pivot tables, more confident, and this will be available. Check out the description of the video, you'll see a link to this file. Okay, now these 4 areas at the bottom of the field list is where it's all been happening. And every time I tick a field that is text-based, like sales rep, country, product category, they keep appearing in the rows area. And when I ticked a numeric field, like total sales value, that appeared in the values area, and it performed the sum function on it. So it didn't ask me, it just did those things. Now, there's nothing wrong with checking these boxes, but you generally get a bit more control by dragging. So rather than unticking a box to remove it, I can also remove by simply dragging it onto my sheet. Here I can drag them out and then drag them back in. Now, it's just an alternative way of doing it. The key difference is control. It can sometimes be a little bit quicker, and sometimes you just have to, because it'd be very difficult by ticking boxes. And I mean stuff like this. I could drag product category into the rows field, and I get the potential of moving it wherever I want. I can move it into one of them fields, which we'll see soon, or can drag it into sales rep and drop it before or after that field, and drag it after it, get a sales rep total, break down by category, or drag them the other way around and get a total for category, break down on sales reps selling that product category. So I could really change the look and feel of the pivot table on the fly by simply dragging them into these 4 areas as they are known. Everything at the moment happening through rows and values. Okay, now we should also probably look at changing the function. I've got a sum function at the moment. That is the default as long as you put a numeric field into that area. But I can click the arrow on the end of the field in that values area and choose the value field settings, and I'll have the opportunity to change to one of the main aggregate functions and a few more as I scroll down. So I could choose count, for example, click OK and find how many orders rather than a total sales amount. So I can easily change what information I'm seeing. I'm just going to come back into value field settings and bring that back to the sum function. Now, bring that back to the sum function. I want to draw our attention to a couple of things. Now, I can see Laura's sales there and Michael's sales. And because these values are not formatted, them sales totals look a lot smaller than they really are. You know, Laura's is a larger amount than Steve's, but it doesn't look like it at the moment because there's only 1 decimal place on the value, so it makes it appear smaller, which it's not. Now, them values were formatted on the other sheet, on the main sheet, but a pivot table removes the formatting, so it's the right answer, just not represented as well as it could be. Now, to change that, I could go back into that value field settings area of the total sales value field or column, and I can choose the number format button in the bottom left. And this will all look familiar when you're here, I'm sure. I can choose accounting and choose the format that I want, and now they'll look a lot better once it's applied, and it will apply it to the whole table because it applies it to that field, that column. So it's quite intelligent. Moving forward long term, if this data grows in size, it will keep that formatting now. It understands what we're telling it to do. Okay, next up I think is the ability to sort and filter a list. So at the moment, the best-selling salesperson for beverages was Margaret. I think second place looks like Nancy, and and then Janet. So basically they're sorted in alphabetical order. But I might want to see the best sales rep in each product category. So to do this, I can just click, I'll tell you what, I'll right click on one of the values that I want to sort. So I don't want that value there because that's for the category. I'm going to right click on one of the sales rep totals, sort, and largest to smallest. And because a pivot table has an outline, because it's a summary, it has actually sorted each group. So notice it has left alone beverages and condiments and confections, because it understands that that's not the same thing. Unlike on this sheet, where when you sort data, you're sorting by column. It's very, very flat. But here there is a summary. It leaves these alone, but it does sort each group. So I think Margaret was best at selling beverages and condiments, but only came in third place for selling confections. Janet was top sales rep in that product area. Now I could do the same to the others. I could right click on a condiments value, sort that largest to smallest, and now I can see the best selling category down to the worst selling. I could always change that back by right clicking the name of the product category and sort it A to Z, and I'll put it back in the order it was. So we can sort at any level, very similar to how you'd sort in a normal data range, with the exception of that outline. Now, filtering the list. We have a filters area underneath at the bottom of our field list. Now what I could do is I could drag country, drag this field into this filters area, and it will create a filter for the pivot table. It's appeared in cell B1 here. It may not for yourselves. It will just appear above the pivot table, wherever you have room. And now I can filter for a country. So I can choose a specific country from that list. I could even choose this select multiple items box and then choose more than one country. And I can see, the information that I want to see. I can then come in here and just clear all that stuff. So it creates a very interactive table. Anybody can come here and choose, the month they want to view or the region they want to view, and work with certain criteria. Once again, in a much more simpler way than what it may be in some other features. I can always bring that back to all if I wanted. You can also have multiple fields in there. I could bring sales rep into that filters, and now I can filter by a country and a sales rep. And see, I'm getting 3 conditions on this value. They are confection sales made by Margaret in Canada. So some quite intense analysis there as well, but really simplified for our benefit and put into a table form. Okay, now let's simplify this again. I'm just going to remove them filters. And the next topic is to look at grouping data in the pivot table. Now I want to group it to find totals by month. I can see on the original sheet that I do have the order date of these orders, but I don't have the month. I actually have the specific date, which is not what I'm interested in. Fortunately, our pivot tables can group any numeric value, and it's especially common with date and times, that you may want to group it by hour, by quarter, by month, and so on. So first of all, let me bring in the order date field, bring it into this rows area, and position it before the field I've got there, which is product category. I can then right mouse click on one of those date values and choose to group. Because it's a date, it gives me group settings. It gives me a start and end range, which is the whole range of our data, so I'm quite happy with that, but I could change it. And then a list of date and time parameters or kind of intervals. Now I've clicked on years there because I want months and years. Because our data spans more than 1 year, it's essential that I choose years as well. Otherwise it will consolidate the months together without the understanding that there are different months across different years. There's a number of days setting at the bottom there as well, so if you wanted things like weeks, you could choose days and up that to 7. Or whatever schedules or intervals you may work with in your business. If I click OK, I now have totals by a month. And if I have a quick fire recap, remember I can easily move data out and move data in and see what I want to see from my pivot table. Now there's one main area at the bottom that we have not covered, and that is the columns area. So to see that, I'm going to move years into that columns area, and I'll remove order date completely. And this has got a nice cross-tab report now. Very common to see, once again, date periods or time periods going across the column labels. You can use it for whatever you wish, but that's where I more often than not will see it being used. Saying that, my accountant puts product categories across there, expense categories. Now I could put order date in there as well if I wanted, and then I can get the months going across there. And it's great for seeing trends, seeing the trend across these sales rep and their performance. You can see some empties there for whatever reason. And once again, very easy to chop and change and get what you want. I can bring it into filters and bring country in, and I can filter by country. See, they're actually quite fun, pivot tables. You can really get stuck into your data. Okay, last 2 topics I want to cover on this tutorial. I need to mention refreshing the table. Now that is also on the Analyze tab. There is a refresh button halfway along it, and pivot tables do not update automatically. They are linked to the source data being this on the other sheet, but they will not update automatically. You'll need to click that refresh button to refresh the connection. Or indeed the drop down list below it will have refresh all. If you have multiple tables, you can refresh them all at once. And the last tip on this video is that also on the Analyze tab, over to the right, we have Pivot Chart. So tables are great, tables are awesome, but when it comes to reporting, a nice graphical representation in a chart is normally far superior and more favoured to just a standard table. Now if I click on Pivot Chart, this once again is Excel 2013 displaying it, so yours may look a little different. We get these different chart types down the left, get the subtypes along the top, and a nice preview so you can see what it does to our data. Now I'm going to keep with this column chart and click OK, and I have a chart to go along with my table. I could move this chart to a different sheet if I wanted. I don't have to see the table. It's important to have the table because the chart's using it, but you can always hide it. It doesn't have to be visible. You might not want it. Now there's tons of stuff we can do with charts at the top here. This video is certainly not pretending to be everything you want to know about pivot tables, because it's not. However, it is, for the most part, probably all you'll want to know, or 80% of what you want to know. When it comes to charts, that's even more vast. There's tons of chart techniques which I'll reserve for other videos or blog articles which you can check out on our website at Computergaga. The last thing I will leave you with, which is really cool, I think, about their charts, is that you get the filters built into its header. So I can change country through the chart directly. I don't need to go through the table. Notice it changes the table as well, but even if this chart's on a different sheet and kind of isolated from the table, people could interact with it themselves, and it's nice and visual. It will change as they work with the table. And that concludes this video, this Excel pivot tables tutorial video. I hope you found it useful. It's quite a big video. It's a lot longer than I normally produce. It's normally quick tips I reserve it for. But I hope you found it useful. If you did, please subscribe to our channel and keep updated with our latest videos and tutorials, and check us out at computergaga.com.